evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's On the Sofa. Unfortunately, our guest hasn't appeared. We've tried contacting him with no avail, so we are probably going to abandon it. Vic, over to you.
Yeah, we're a little disappointed, to say the least, because we were told yesterday everything was going to be okay. I mean, obviously, Coventry City losing out in the semi-finals of the FA Cup might have had an effect on it, but a little disappointed, to say the least. What we should say, of course, is this coming Thursday evening, there is the Junior Reds end-of-season party, which is taking place in the Legends Lounge. So I think if you're interested in going to that, it's £1 a ticket. Am I right in saying that? I think it's £1.
That's right, yeah.
And there'll be all sorts of activities for the younger ones. And it starts at 6:30. Caroline Lane's put on a fabulous show for you. So hopefully that will be something you can enjoy this Thursday evening at 6:30 at the Legends Lounge at the County Ground. So there we are.
Yeah. If it was anything like the Christmas one, it's going to be a blast. It's good. So we had fun at that one, didn't we? So
yeah, we did have fun.
Tickets,
and it'll be fun again.
Yeah. Tickets are available through the ticketing website. So just get your ticket from there if you have any juniors. So so apologies for tonight. If there's anybody with any questions that they've got or anything they want to say before we go, feel free. We'll stay on for a couple of minutes and do what we do. But it's a bit disappointing because as you know, it's not easy getting these players and they let you down. So shame, but we say that I haven't heard from him, so something may well have occurred. So we'll see what we get in the coming hours and things. So,
do you want to mention the match day draw on Saturday?
Yes, it hasn't been actually announced yet on socials, but our usual match day draw on Saturday, end of season, it will be for a minimum of £1,000. Second prize will be a season ticket. Third prize will be a voucher for the new home shirts when they're released. We are going to put them on sale on our shop. So you can buy sets of 5 online. And those numbers will go together with the ones sold on the day and also our prepaid. So if you do want to get involved in that, they will be going live probably sometime tomorrow. So there you go.
I've had a suggestion actually from Mike on Twitter. He wants me to interview you about your Swindon Town supporting life. So we'll do that, shall we? For a bit.
Oh my
gosh! So Chris Kyle, when did you first start watching Swindon Town Football Club?
I started what I can remember, I started, I think it was 1977. I was a mere child. My father took me. My sister used to go before me. He took her, and when she left home to work away, then I was taken, and it just stuck. So seeing my favourite player was Jim Barron, goalkeeper, and went through many others, Ian Miller, Peter Eastoe, many of the ones we've had on here actually for some unknown reason. There is a bit of a thing there. And then, of course, Paul Rideout, Paul Batty, and Charlie Henry. So I've been to all the cup finals bar the 1969 because I was 4 at the time. So I remember my dad coming home from that. They'd got the train home and running up the road to meet him and my sister when they got home. And it must have been sort of quite late for me to be up, but that's what I can remember of that. And so I started, when my father passed away, my nephew came with me, and he was part of the Junior Robins then. And we used to go to all the away games and play other academies, sort of the juniors of theirs, and things like that. And then I had a bit of a break because I did not like Steve McMahon. So I had a bit of a break, only a couple of seasons. But I all of a sudden I just said, okay, I'm going back. and I sort of went, and I had the same seat as I'd left, and I've had that seat since the Don Rogers stand has been erected. So always had that seat. So yeah, so that's it. So many trials and tribulations, up, down, everything.
Yeah. In all those years, then, what was your first game? Can you remember your first game?
Well, the game I can remember most was Tranmere at home, because my mum's cousin played. His name was Tommy Young, and he played, and we went to meet him afterwards. He was one of a sort of a distant relation. We didn't. It was a cousin twice removed or something like that. But yes, so that was the first match I really remember going to. So yeah, but yeah, and here I am now.
Here you are now, Secretary of the Official Supporters Club. What was it that hooked you, though? I mean, was it, many people sort of, it's the first sight of the green grass, although in my instance, it was, the fact that it was the first sight of the brown mud when I first watched them play, because there wasn't any grass on the pitch. But, what were your first impressions?
I think it was probably being part of a crowd. I love the atmosphere. Of course, I love going with my dad. It was spending time with him and everything. And used to stop at the sweet shop on the way. After you park the car, stop at the sweet shop and then go to the ground. But yeah, I think it was mostly being part of a community type thing, and just all the different sounds and sights that you've seen when you were that young. So yeah, I think that was it. And then I got hooked on the actual playing side of it, and then you get your favorite players and everything like that. That all comes after that, I think. So
yeah. We're getting questions in, by the way. Hi, Mark. Mark says, Windy Miller, one of mine too, Chris, a great player, Ian Miller, down that wing, of course. Nick says, how many grounds have you visited? I mean, loads is the answer to that.
Loads. I wish I had actually made a note of them all, because I never used to go away in the early stages. I remember going down to Plymouth, and we had a brick through the window of the coach. I remember that, and a few other grounds, but I never went away a lot with my dad. But when I started taking my nephew and we started visiting other grounds with the junior Robins, then it sort of hooked then. So I've been to a lot of grounds, and especially in the last 3 or 4 seasons when I've started going regularly as well. So yeah, I'm sure I can ask my nephew. He's a bit of a stato, so he'll be able to tell me exactly how many we've been to and what the score was and who scored and or thing like that. So
yeah, it's interesting because on the bus on Saturday, as you know, it was a long journey. But there were, excuse me, a bit of hay fever today. But they were comparing sort of their spreadsheets now. They have spreadsheets and they got all their games up. And I can't remember the games I've been to put on the spreadsheets, to be honest, which I wish I could because I'd know them. But I mean, that was the point. You never had that sort of thing in those days, did you? So unless you bought a program or you kept you didn't even have tickets. You wouldn't have known.
No, and I really, really wish I had, because I hear sort of the people on the coach saying how many times they've been to a certain ground and things like that. And I love all those stats and everything, and I just wish I'd kept it up at those times, but I just didn't.
Well, Sean says, floodlights drew me in when we moved here from Australia. My dad was already a town fan, mind. Malcolm says, great to hear your history of supporting Swindon Chris Kyle. James says, Colin Calderwood or Fraser Blake Tracy?
Thanks, James. Both for different reasons, and I'll leave it as that.
Okay. Lee says, same as me, Chris Kyle. That's how I felt on my first game. Helen, a favourite manager?
I think it would have to be Lou Macari. Mainly because he was. I met him a few times, and also he presented. When my dad retired. He took us into the dressing room and presented a retirement card for him and everything like that. So I think it's that personal touch. If you've got those memories, I think that was the thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, if you want to send in your memories, we might as well continue this just to explain.
Yeah.
We were expecting Mr. Brian Kilcline, but for some reason, best known to himself, he's not shipped up. Or long voted up, if I might use that phrase.
Actually, just check on my emails. He hasn't answered me. But yeah.
So we'll just, if you want to send in your memories, we'll talk about them. That's
yeah. That's great.
Nick says favorite service station.
Oh, that's got to be Cobham. Cobham. I could stay there.
Is that the one with a big circle? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could spend all day just going around there. It's great.
Yeah, there's food of every variety on the way to Gillingham.
No one. We don't stop there. But my other favourite food, because going up to Scotland a lot and everything, it's T-Bay.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that's
there
the
we
other
are.
one.
That's number 1 and number 2 on the hit list for Chris Connor. Mark says, my dad was a policeman and used to plonk me and my brother on the Stratton Bank whilst he went on duty. Oh, fair enough. Okay.
That's where I stood on the Stratton Bank. As you come up onto the Stratton Bank, there was a little raised bit at the front. And that's where we used to be there. So that's where I spent all the time on that bit.
Sean mentions the canal boat, which I've just mentioned. Maybe the Wi-Fi went down. I mean, I have looked through, obviously, done a lot of research into Brian Kilcline. I've spent a very interesting afternoon reading about him and his life. And it is an extraordinary life, I've got to say. And I have actually played football against him, which is a bizarre and strange fact. And my ankle's still testament to that story. So, yeah. Carol says, ground you never want to go back to. Any of them in League Two, I think is fair to say.
There's a few in the League Two that you think. I always find, Salford, I find that just so depressing. I don't know why. I think it's because you've got that little tiny bit of seating and then the terracing, and I just find it so soulless and not good.
It's that weird seating system as well, doesn't it? It just goes round and round. Yeah, odd. Favourite and least away ground and why, says Jamie. Well, you've mentioned Salford. What's your favourite one?
It would have to be Anfield, I think. Only because when I was a very small child and I was in love with Kenny Dalglish. So I've always got these sort of things in the back of my mind, and it was just sorry, I've just had an email from Brian Kilcline saying yes, he's ready.
Oh right, let's get him on.
So if you want to talk, Nick, I will sort this.
I will talk. You sort out Mr. Brian Kilcline, and our guest is with us very shortly. So that's fantastic.
I'm just going to go offline a minute.
Okay.
Offline.
Yeah, go on then. Hello, Daz St George. My first Swindon Town game was Swindon Town against Queen's Park Rangers, the 2nd of May, 1967, a 1-1 draw. And Paul says, I thought the letters had fallen off and it said T-Bay at that services. Great to have your memories. I mean, if you want to still keep sending them in, that's fantastic. And actually what we'll do, I think, during the close season is we'll have a special edition whereby we have your memories. Why not? Because lots of memories, of course, out there, and we'd love to get your stories. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a special edition. Remember going to watch Sunderland away? The match was cancelled. Of the 2 coaches that went home, we went to watch Leicester versus Middlesbrough at Filbert Street and we'll put in the away end. Oh, dear. Yes. Jamie Newton's asked me, hi, Jamie, what's your favourite and least favourite? I'll give that some thought because I haven't really thought about that. But I have to say Exeter City is probably one of my favourites for obvious reasons because we live about 2 minutes away. Hi to Malcolm. Good evening and hi and all. And hi, Brian. I remember the talk you had to Eric Cantona when he played the 2-2 draw in Man United in 1994. Great to hear from you. Thanks for being part in Swindon's history. Well, when Brian comes on, we'll put that to him. And Helen says, I wonder how many of us follow our dad's team. It's interesting, isn't it, how football supporting goes in families. So, it is a wonderful thing that's part of football, that it goes on through generations. Chris is back.
He should be joining us shortly. He's I've asked him to click on the link, so he should be joining us in a bit. So we'll carry on until he does.
Yeah. Hi, Claire. I went to my first match with my dad when I was 4. I had to get milk crate to stand on to see over the Shrivenham Road stand wall. And you see, what I've suggested, Chris, whilst you were away sorting out technicals, is that we do one of these in the close season just for people's memories. I think that's a good one.
I think it's lovely because you see people at football, but you don't know how they got started or anything like that, because you're always talking about the current situation. So so I think somebody actually asked on here what was my favourite game, and that would have to be Tranmere in the playoffs when we went up there.
The away game.
Yeah, that was absolutely fabulous, especially at the end when the Tranmere fans come over and shaking hands and everything like that. That was, to me, that was what true football should be about.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? It was a great night. Yeah, absolutely. We all got favourite moments, I think, that aren't necessarily the big moments, are they? They're just
exactly. No, that's right. Yes, I enjoyed the Leicester playoffs and everything, but those type of games really stick in your mind. So
hi, Daz. 57 years later, I'm still following STFC for my sins. I know there are moments when you think, why am I doing this? But you just do, don't you? The memories would be a great exhibit in the museum. Nick, that is something we are looking at, and a way of recording memories, because the great Joni Mitchell always say, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And I think that's pretty much it. If you don't record those memories, and that's what it's all about, really, the memories of people going to football on a Saturday afternoon. Not at all STFC related, but my lawnmower burst into flames 20 minutes ago, says Craig. Glad to survive to tell the tale. See you folks on Saturday. Yeah, coming down from Scotland, Craig. Wow. There you are.
Thank God you're okay, Craig. Thank goodness for that.
Something I thought I'd never say this Monday evening, that a lawnmower burst into flames, but we wish you well.
Well, I'm actually sort of surprised that you could actually be mowing the lawn, because it is actually pouring down here. So
yeah, it's brightened up in Devon a little bit. Somerset's game was abandoned today because of rain, unfortunately, but there we are.
Okay. We have Brian with us.
Marvellous.
Okay, you ready, Nick?
What time was I supposed to be on here?
Hey, Brian.
7 o'clock, Mr. Kilcline.
Yes.
I so apologise. I've only just got in about 10 minutes ago, so I realised.
You're here, Mr. Kilcline. That's the most important thing, and you're live on the interweb.
We have just been talking about our memories, Brian. So I will leave you with Vic, and I will see you later.
Wow. Could you just explain? I mean, I've been reading about your 9-foot dragon and stuff, but what is that? What is that above your head, Mr. Kilcline?
Oh, this is only a chair. This is only a rocking chair. It's like a chair. I'll have to ask Lynn. Lynn, what sort of chair is this I've got here? Are you ready for this? It's a parrot chair.
A parrot chair. Okay.
Yeah, it's a very old chair. It's a parrot. It's from the 1980s when I was a young man.
Well, I was going to say that's not too long ago, as far as I'm concerned, I must admit. I have to say, I've been reading about your life today, and I've got to say, the word fun springs to mind, because boy, oh boy, you like a bit of fun, don't you?
Well, it's not fun. I just enjoy life, because it's. I'm getting voices from down below me here. It's only because I've got an entertainment manager called my wife, Lynn. No. It's not a rehearsal, is it? So you've got to go out there, enjoy yourself, and we try and do that as much as we can. Even when we played football, we try to enjoy ourselves. People used to look at me and think I was angry or mad or whatever. I wasn't. I was enjoying myself. That's how we were brought up. Go out there and have a laugh, get the ball any way you can.
Yes. I've got to say, this is a question straight away. Good evening, Killer. This is from Daz St. George. What do you think of VAR? I mean, did you watch the game yesterday?
Yes, I did watch the game yesterday. A lot of people were driving me mad about was I going to watch the game or was I going to go to the game? And instead, I watched it at home on my own because I'm a terrible watcher of football. Because it's a horrible thing. You're not able to go out there and do anything on a football pitch, and I hate watching it. But I watched them yesterday, and I felt so sorry for them because I thought the first game when they beat Wolves, I was driving up in the car from Cornwall up to Yorkshire where I live, and they were winning 1-0. By the time I got to Yorkshire, I had to take the trailer off the back of my truck, get back in the truck and go home. They were getting beat 2-1, and I was gutted, and I thought, I can't watch this, so I turned it off. And then about 20 minutes later, I get a phone call that says, what about Coventry? They did really well. I says, yeah, they did well in the first half, but, they went behind 2-1 and it was inevitable. He says, no, they won. So that was the game before the Manchester United game. So yesterday, watching that, they went 3-0 down. And I'm thinking, oh, God, try and keep it down. But then in the second half, when they got the penalty, you sort of thought, this is the way Coventry have been doing it this year. And you thought, maybe they got the penalty. No, they got the first goal. Then they got the second goal. And then you're thinking, could it? And then the third goal. And then the VR situation. And then I've seen the picture today on a newspaper, and you're talking toenails. It's quite frightening and it's quite sad. But in life and in football, they're sanitizing everything and they're making it. There's no grey areas. It's all got to be black and white. And I was brought up with 20 or 30,000 supporters, all with a different opinion about what happened in the game. And now they're just trying to nail it down to being so exact. Football was something that people could vent their aggression of the week out on 22 chaps on a football field on a Saturday afternoon.
I mean, I think the thing is, those Coventry fans had one of their greatest moments ever. And then they had one of their worst moments ever, all in the space of 20 seconds. And that, to me, is what VAR has done. It's sucked out that joy, that pleasure, that absolute moment that you live for as a football fan.
Yeah, but there's two ways of looking at it. You're talking about the Coventry City support. I'm not defending this, but in a way, it sounds as though I am. You're looking at the Coventry City supporters, which I think were no, that's a strong word. It was hard for them to take that, but for Manchester United supporters, they're thinking brilliant. You know what I mean? There's two ways of looking at it. Me being a Coventry, an ex-Coventry City player, I'm absolutely heartbroken for what happened to them. But if you talk to an ex-Manchester United player, they won't like how it happened, but they're happy that it did happen.
I was going to say, you as a defender would have been relieved, wouldn't you? That's the other side of the coin, isn't it? 1 minute,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing. It's a horrible. I don't know why it was brought in. I thought it was brought in for tight situations. I don't even know who brought up that it could have been offside. Was it one of the Man United players? Because I think all the Man United players thought it was lost.
I suppose it's just the VAR and the referees here saying, hang on, you better have a look at this. I guess that's how it works. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's over. It's done. Man United are in the final. That's the end of it. But here's a message from Claire. And she says, whilst you were at Swindon, you coached the ladies team. And as a centre-half, I would like to say a massive thank you as I learnt so much for you. And I've had another message about that from Mike about you and your, looking after the women's team in your days at Swindon. So going back all those years, 30 years ago, when women's football wasn't as prominent as it is now, you've obviously played a part in it.
I see, so many things happened in my life. I forget about it. But I remember the Swindon women, and people asked me what I thought about women's football. And I've always said, the women's football, technically, they were brilliant. Some of the girls were really, really good. I says the only thing that the girls were missing was the strength. You know, that was the thing. But now the years have rolled on, and I think the girls have got so much stronger. They're still technically very good, but they're catching up with the strength. But strength, as in ladies' strength. You know, how can you say? I don't think it'll ever come to the case where women will be playing against men or men against women. It's very similar to. Now, I might be shot down for this, but when I was a kid, we were, well, not necessarily me, but a lot of us, we were in stages like, you know, the 10-year-olds played against 10-year-olds, the 10-year-olds played against 11-year-olds, that's about it. But you never got the 10-year-olds playing against 13 and 14-year-olds because they might have got hurt. And then later on in my life, then I coached the ladies team at Swindon. But then later and later on in life, you know, I got to about 50, I was over in Portugal. Walking football took off. Now, the walking football took off where it was over 50s. Now, you get over 50s guys playing walking football. It's not walking football. It's just an excuse for old guys to play football. But they're running, but it looks like they're walking because they're too old to run. So they call it walking football now. But what I'm trying to say is you get 50-year-olds playing against 70-year-olds now. Now you could hurt a 70-year-old. They're still running around like chickens with no heads. But if you bash into a 70-year-old, you're going to hurt them. So going back, I think men against women, they could both play football. But I honestly think if you get a fully fit man banging into a fully fit lady, there's going to be pain. Probably the bloke would get hurt more than the woman, to tell you the truth.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned the walking football. I actually played in a walking football final against you out in Portugal.
Right.
You beat us very heavily, I have to say, and you were a very good team. But you had a very good side, didn't you? You used to go around Portugal playing a lot of tournaments.
Well, I got asked to go along. I had somebody staying at one of the houses over in Portugal, and I came back over to Portugal, and this is Brian. Will you come down to this? This walking football. I said, you are this walking football. This is, you know, because when you play football, you're just like kids. You're just going out on the playground and playing football and running around like kids. And that's the same as a 50-year-old and a 60-year-old. It's absolutely brilliant just to go out and see these people or people of a certain age going out, having the crack. Because I think walking football was created as a rehabilitation for football for people. Because when I got injured after the cup final when I played for Coventry, and we got sent to Lilleshall for 3 weeks, and the way they rehabilitate people is make it competitive. Instead of just leaving somebody in the corner just trying to help himself to get fit, they make it competitive. Amongst all the people that are injured, and depending on what injury you have. You do a certain sport, so they'll do cycling, which you can have leg injuries and you can carry on doing the cycling. And you compete against each other. Swimming, they do that. Sit down volleyball, which was hilarious. People that can't run around on their legs, bouncing around on their arses. Pardon my French, but they do it that way. But then again, they brought this walking football in because I think injury is a mental thing as well. So. If you can get out with a group of guys playing walking football, it's all about having the crack and just doing something. Like when you have, which I haven't, touch wood, had any operations. If they have operations, your knees and your hips and all these operations that people have, they're wanting them to get up as soon as possible. They have the operation. The next day, they're trying to get them out of the bed to get up and start walking around with the new knee or the new hip. So it's all about, and that's what walking football is. And so I'll tell you one story which I found funny over in Portugal. There was a referee who was one of the guys who was 85. He was 85 and he was refereeing, but he could only see down one side of the pitch. And the only time he blew the whistle is when the two Germans touched the ball. Now they spoke very good English, and there you go. Why did you blow the whistle when I touched the ball? And he's just clearly said, because you're German. not because he did anything wrong in the football. It was just because they were German. He blew the whistle and gave a free kick against them. But there's so many little tales you can tell about it, and it's just carrying it on from when we played football. You could tell tales about things that used to happen on the football pitch, but it just keeps on going and going and going. And on a I don't know, this sore or good note, I have seen 2 chaps in the walking football die on the walking football over in Portugal. And then when you turn around, they get up in the morning, they've got the kits on, they've gone there, they played one game, and then they came off, and then they've dropped down dead. And then you go back and you have to take them back to their wives. But what a way to go.
Well, I can tell you that weekend we spent over there and got to that final was one of the best weekends we've had. It was a big laugh, I can tell you. We really enjoyed it. Now, I'm gonna talk to you about Swindon, of course, obviously, but I want to know what it's like to lift the FA Cup, because you missed out on extra time because of that tackle with Gary Mabbott. But when you hobbled up those 39 steps to pick up that trophy, were you an adult footballer, or were you a young kid of 6 going in your back garden playing football?
The way I've always said it to you, see, as a footballer, football was your job, and people turn around and say, "The job? That wasn't a job." That's it. But in a funny kind of way, it was. So we were just like kids. But football. I went up there as a man that had tried to do his best for the year. So I was a man. I was a boy, but a man, and we'd been successful. And I didn't finish the game, but the lads said to me, "Get up there, get up there." And so it was the hardest steps I've ever had to make to try and get up there. And I think Swindon have had it, and all the teams I've been at, it was a great bunch of lads that had been together, had the laugh, and we got rewarded at the end of the year. And I was just honoured to be able to go up there and pick it up.
Yeah, well, it was a fabulous moment for you, I'm sure. Obviously, you've been at Newcastle. You've been described by Kevin Keegan as the most important signing he's ever made at Newcastle, which, hey, that's not a bad tribute to have, is it? And I was reading an article in the Mag, which is about Newcastle fans, and they were saying about a fan was honoured to be in your presence. And I think it was at Pavel Cernicek's funeral, and which must have been a very emotional moment for everybody. But he just said he was honoured to be in your presence. You've always had that relationship with supporters, haven't you?
I have. Well, I think supporters aren't stupid. You get these people on the television and telling people how they think the game should be played, or what's happening on the football pitch. I think supporters. Well, I know supporters. They've been watching the game that long. They know what they want, and they know what they're seeing. If they see a good game of football, they know they've seen a good game of football. And if they've seen a bad game of football, they know a bad game of football. And regarding footballers, they know if a player's giving somebody 100%. And that's all that the supporters want, is the person that goes out with their club shirt on their back and goes out and gives that football team 100%. The supporters will love them. And even if they make the mistake, as long as they're trying their hardest, they'll bear with them. I can't believe a footballer doesn't go out and try. But sometimes that's why I never really get involved or say anything about what's going on a Saturday afternoon, because you don't know. The only people that know what's happening at that football club is the people at the football club, and the people running the football club know what's going through some of them players' minds. Sometimes you can't put other people in there to replace people that might be having a bad week. There's so many other things involved in football. You don't know what to. Well, I would never dig a team out or dig players out, because I was always taught at the age of 16 when I made my debut, and I played 10 games as a 16, 17-year-old, I was regarded as a man, because as soon as you go out into that football pitch, you've got no excuses.
How was Newcastle for you? Because obviously they were in relegation trouble when you joined them, but then you went on to lift the First Division, well, Division 2, First Division trophy, whatever it is. But the fans at Newcastle, how daunting was that when you shipped up at St James's Park?
Yeah, but see, the thing is, you see, I remember the first day I went up there. I drove up on a Wednesday. Me and my wife drove up on a Wednesday. We arrived at the old St James's Park, and that's just, spine tingling as you walk through there. And then you get Terry McDermott and Kevin Keegan come running down the steps, say, "Killer, come on. Let's tell you what's the training guide. You can have a training session. We're going to get you ready for Saturday." So I go up and go into the training session, and I have a run around with these lads and come out afterwards. And I go up to Kevin and I said, "Blimey, you've got a bloody good youth team there." He says, "That's not the youth team, that's the first team." That was the problem with Newcastle. They had a lot of very good players, but very young players. So they probably needed an old goat to go in there, just calm them down a bit, and sort of pull the reins in a bit and just let them go every now and then instead of going all the time. Because that's all I did, just calmed them down a bit, and I was too old to keep bombing on like they did. So by the time they lost the ball and people come attacking, I was still in my own half so I could defend.
Fair enough. Well, it's simple, but it worked, obviously, clearly. And obviously, to get that sort of state where somebody says they were honoured to be in your presence, how does that feel as a footballer?
You don't know. You don't know. I don't. As a footballer,
Or as a person, even.
Things like that don't register. You see, because you just think you're a person. You're a working class lad, gone out there, been lucky enough to being able to be picked for some of these football teams, the Swindons, the Coventrys, the Notts Counties, the Newcastles, being asked to play for these football clubs, and you're only doing what thousands of young lads wish they could have done. And I had the ability, but I had a lot of luck involved in football. There's a lot of luck involved in football, being in the right place at the right time and doing it right and taking advantage of it. And I was lucky enough to play with a lot of very good players.
So how did your move to Swindon come about? I think it was 90,000 you joined the town. How did that come about? John Gorman, of course, manager of the side in the Premier League. And people talk, when you were there for the recent reunion, John Gorman was very warmly thought of, wasn't he? So how did that move to the town come about?
Well, them young lads that were at Newcastle when I first arrived had been there. They were played there a year and a half. So they'd grown up a lot in that year and a half. And by that time, I wasn't going to be able to get him back into the side. So I'd said to Kevin, I don't think they wanted me to leave, but I said, I just want to play football. That's all I want to do. And then John Gorman and David Hay came in and offered me a chance to play football. And, and John came across as a really nice guy, and he's very knowledgeable about the game. And so he said, "Would you come down and try and help us down at Swindon?" So I did. I came down and I tried to help, but this time it didn't work. But we had a couple of good results, and then I got injured right at the death, and we just didn't survive. But listening to the lads at the reunion, I think Swindon were very lucky at when they were in the division. They played some very good football, very open football. But the thing is, you can't do that in the Premiership. You can do it in bits and babs. But John Gorman was he was a pure footballer. He could do tricks with the balls that was unbelievable, but he was just a pure footballer. And so you need some grit and determination, and you need some Brian Kilclines out there that just go out and clump and click, and then you give the ball to the lads that are playing, like the Monks and Lingies. But I think they overplayed the game, Swindon. That was their biggest problem. They tried to play instead of sort of consolidating and then breaking. But it was hard. It is always hard because I don't think they spent a lot of money from when they got promoted to when they got up into the Premiership, did they?
No. Well, there wasn't the money about in those days, of course, was there?
Exactly. It was the same as what happened to me when I first at Notts County. You know, I think we bought one player when we got promoted to the then First Division, but we had 3 or 4 years in the First Division before they got relegated. But it was hard.
That was under Neil Warnock, I guess, was it, at Notts County?
No, I was at Notts County when
Jimmy still
Howard Wilkinson.
Oh, Howard Wilkinson, right? Of course, yes.
Howard Wilkinson. That was his first manager. Well, assistant manager to Jimmy Cyril.
Yeah,
so
Howard
Jimmy
Wilkinson.
Jimmy Cyril was the manager, and Howard Wilkinson was his assistant, and that was his first footballing job. And his first footballing job got us promoted up into the First Division. Very good.
You're from Nottingham, so were you Forest or County when you were growing up?
I used to write all the Forest. I used to do a lot about the Nottingham Forest. But you see, the thing is, my missus is, I'm a very loyal person. So Notts County came in for me first. So I went with Notts County.
Fair enough.
And Jimmy Cyril was the one that came in for me. No, it wasn't Jimmy Cyril. A guy called Mick Jones, Ron Fenton, and Colin Addison came round to the house to ask me to sign. So I signed schoolboy forms for Notts County, and then, you know, like you as you were, I'm signed schoolboy forms for Notts County. I'm going to be playing for Notts County, but that's got nothing to do with it. You're just playing schoolboy. You're playing in the youth team probably, and just before you sort of sign as an apprentice, Colin Addison, Mick Jones, and Ron Fenton all got the sack. So the people that signed me as a schoolboy all got the sack, and I hadn't been signed as an apprentice. And then I left school. I was about to leave school and heard nothing from Notts. And then right at the death, Jimmy Cyril had phoned us up, and I went in, and he says, in his deep Scottish accent, so I'm not going to try and do, just because you made a promise, I'm just going to sign you on that promise. Because then that year there was only 3 of us that signed apprentices. There was only 3 apprentices, and there was only 7 the year before. So they only had 10 apprentices, and I don't know how it works now. They don't do apprenticeships now, do they? The football
academy and things like that.
So they're coming up from a younger age. So I did, of my 2-year apprenticeship, I did a year and then signed pro after a year.
Well, what a career you had. I mean, you know, I take what you're saying about you footballers doing the job, but, you know, as you've rightly said, many thousands of us would dearly have loved to have been professional footballers. So how do you sort of relate that? Because, you know, you see it as you're going out there, you're doing your best as a footballer. Are you in love with football still? Is that how it works or not when you're a professional?
I loved it. It was a tool. Football was a tool for me. So, you know, if you've had a good week, so that's why I'm talking to you about it earlier. You don't know what goes through some players' minds.
Yeah.
Football was like a tool. So I could vent all my week out when I go out when I walked over that line on a Saturday afternoon. You could tell if I've had a good week or a bad week by just what you went out and did. So I've had a lot of good weeks, I think, because I've gone out and enjoyed every minute. Every time I've gone out on a football pitch, I've loved every minute of it, and it's looked after me. It's you know, I know when I get a pain now, which I don't often get, if there's something wrong with me, because I've been brought up that way. You know, deal with it, and you have to deal with things. No, football, I loved it. I loved it as a kid. I loved it growing up, and don't get me wrong, I've had some dodgy moments as well in football where you've had to sort of bite your lip, and one of them moments was at Swindon when I had your little friends called Steve McMahon, which I really liked Steve, not. But then again, you see, Swindon taught me a hell of a lesson, a life lesson. I went there and I was having a good time. Doug Gorman, he treated me so well, it was unbelievable. Then John got the sack. The
Mm.
Steve McMahon came in. Then you don't know what goes on, and I think they were just trying to get rid of people, so they make your life hell.
Mm.
But I learned, because I lived up in Yorkshire and I never moved from there. I went and lived on a narrowboat
Yes.
down near Swindon on the Thames. And so I used to spend all my time down there, and the family were up in Yorkshire, and I used to go back to Yorkshire at the weekends. But now, since Steve McMahon took over, he was making me run during the week, so I couldn't. All I did was run. Never played. He never allowed me to play football. He made me run at the weekends, and he was just trying to drive me mad. Well, he was doing it. And normally what you do is, the way you used to deal with it then was you'd go down to the pub and you'd just go, you want to kill him. And I always tell people the story that near me, where I used to moor the boat, there was a pub probably about half an hour's walk away and probably about 10, 15 minutes drive away. But in the narrowboat, it used to take me 2.5 hours to get to this pub. So by the time I got on the boat, started it up, set off to the pub, got to the pub, I'd calmed right down. So you just have the 1 pint and you turn around and bring the boat back. And I did that for 2 years because that's how long I got sort of. And then I tried to pack the game up after Swindon. I went to Mansfield and I did all right there at Mansfield the other year, but then things started to get a bit silly, and then I tried to pack the game in twice after that, and then got asked to go. That's another story. It's more stories. Went back and played for Halifax, played for Altrincham, and then I finally hung my boots up.
Hmm. Well, you did that, and then you came back and played walking football, didn't you? So you didn't really hang them up. You just came back and played again. But that's another story too. I mean, I'm intrigued by this narrowboat thing because every time your name gets mentioned, everybody goes, "Oh yeah, he lived on a narrowboat." And there's a story about you playing chess against Andy Much and things like that. I mean, what was it about a narrowboat? Why did you suddenly want to go and live on one of those? Was it a thing you always wanted to do, or just available, or how was it?
Well, footballers in them days weren't earning the money that the lads are earning nowadays. You know, you come from Yorkshire, and my base was sort of set up here. Then I got asked to go down to play for Swindon. You look round at the houses there. To buy a house down in Swindon or in Oxford was a lot of money. So you had to be careful. You had to be, and I didn't believe in renting because it's like dead money. So instead, I put money down towards a boat. Well, it was Lynn's boss's idea. We went down there. I said, "Where do you want to live?" I said, "I haven't seen anywhere in Swindon, but Oxford's really nice." I'm saying that Oxford's really nice. Well, it is. The parts of Oxford are quite nice. But so we saw, and her boss said to us, "Why don't you get a narrowboat?" I thought, "Oh, what an idea that is." So my wife, while I was off training, she went round. I think she must have looked at about 60 boats. And the criteria she was looking for is a boat that I could stand up in. And we found one. It was in Napton and brought it down to the Thames. And we did it up and I lived on it. And Mudgy came to play chess. Laurie Sanchez came along and had a look as well. I remember Laurie being on the boat. I can't remember if any of the other lads did. I don't think so. But if anybody's in a stressful job or getting a lot of grief, go on a narrowboat because it calms you right down. Everything's 4 miles an hour, which that's about my speed at the minute.
Fabulous. It sounds fantastic. Actually, I was reading another story about humour in football, and you mentioned Chris Guthrie was a kit man at Newcastle. I think he played for Swindon as well, didn't he? Is that the same Chris Guthrie? Yes, that's right.
Oh, yeah, what a lad he was. He was more interested in his football. He was more interested in his fishing than he was in the football. I never saw it. It never happened when I was there. But I think Kevin Keegan told me that once they went away, and mind you, Chris was the kit man. He forgot to take the kit with him. So they had to borrow, I can't remember what team it was, they had to borrow a spare kit from the team so they could play the game.
Brilliant.
But these are all sort of characters, and these you can laugh about these things now, but at the time you know it's a serious matter. You know, we're footballers, and what do you need for football? You need football kit and your boots.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's kind of important, really, isn't it?
Man, Chris.
Yeah, he played for Swindon in the 70s, I think it was, and a really hard centre forward, I would suggest, in his day.
Yeah, well, if it's from the northeast, they're all going to be hard there, aren't they?
Well, this leads me on to this question from Anthony, who says, who's the hardest number 9 you've had dealings with in your career? There's a famous moment, of course, with you and Eric Cantona at Swindon when he did the stomping on John Moncur. But who was the hardest number 9 you had to play against?
Hardest as in physical?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Or indeed skillful as well.
Oh, there's a multitude of skillful players. You know, like the Keegans, the Dalglishers, the Rushers, and all them kind of players. But they're all skillful players, and there's a lot more as well, Cantona's. But the hardest player I ever got to play, I remember once playing against Oxford and going out to head a ball out at the back post and then getting kicked in the face as I headed the ball. And it was Billy Warhurst.
Oh, yes. Mm.
And he knocked all my teeth out my face. He knocked my spark out. They had to drag me off the pitch. Well, they had to take me off the pitch. I was just knocked out unconscious. So it was a very interesting return game, that was.
Yes. So did you ever sort of
comes out of each other?
Bit of retribution, maybe? Did you manage to get that in later?
No, I was never. I would never do that. The way I always used to describe myself as a footballer was, you look at two footballers. One of the footballers is 5'4", and one of the footballers is 4. Now they go out and do the same tackle. The 5'4" lad would go out, slide in, and it looks nice and crisp, and he nicks the ball and it goes away. The other lad, who's 6'4", does exactly the same tackle, and there's a lot more coming behind that tackle. So he makes a bit of a mess of the player that he goes through. And that was just me. You know, I think in all my 20 years playing, I think I only got sent off probably 2 times as a professional. Twice as a professional and once as a young lad. I got booked plenty of times, don't get me wrong, but one of them was for calling a linesman an egg.
Yes, I was going to mention that. I mean, I read that and I thought, what a bizarre thing that is. So you have a decision which goes against you. You go up to the linesman. Many people might say you come out with a volley of foul and abusive language, but an egg. Why an egg?
Well, because you can't swear at somebody, can you?
No.
You must because I don't know if they still do it now, but when I first started going, if you got a booking, you got a letter from the FA from the referee why you were booked, and it was there, paragraph. He called my linesman an egg in an aggressive way. Don't ask me what aggressive egg sounds like.
That's amazing. I did read that and I had to chortle. Well, in fact, I chortled a lot about a lot of your stuff, like the fact that you fell off a mountain bike and broke 6 ribs, and actually cheered when you found out you broke 6 ribs. Is that true?
Yeah, because at the time, like, I was getting a lot of grief off people because they were calling me a big girl's blouse. Because they're calling me a big girl's blouse. Because this is no joke. The year before, my wife got kicked off a horse and she broke 1 rib. And I give her a bit of a hard time about that. She says, oh, come on, you can push through that. You can push through that. And that was in Portugal. So you don't go to the doctors in Portugal with a broken rib because they'll end up chopping an arm off or chopping a leg off. So the next year I was riding, and it was with a policeman as well. The two of us, we were just and we'd been on this stretch of road so many times before. We'd come round the corner. There was a bar about 400 yards away. You know, you've done an absolute brilliant ride. You've been out for 4 hours and you're just going to go beer. So you're hitting it hard. And I hit a pothole, went flying off it and just smashed myself on the ground. Now, that is the worst pain I've ever had in my life. And so you couldn't go to the doctors or anything like that. And I'm just, there's no way. And I was going back to England a week later. So I thought, I'll hang on until then. Plus, I had the caravan over in Portugal. So I had to maneuver that around, twist it around. And you get my loving wife giving me sticks saying, "You big girl's blouse, there's nothing wrong with it at all." And all the lads that were there that were playing the walking football, having a dig as well. And I'm going, I can't be flipping showing off here. I can't be acting like a big girl's blouse. So so I drove all the way through Spain, all the way through Portugal, all the way through Spain, all the way through. I got down to Portsmouth and drove back up to Yorkshire. And the first thing I did when we hit Yorkshire was, Lynn said to me, "Where are you going?" I says, "I've got to go to the hospital." She said, "No, you're not. You can do that in the morning." So I went back and took the caravan, put that away, went to bed, got up in the morning, went into the hospital and went to see a doctor. And like sometimes when you go to accident emergency, a lot of the times when you go in there, there's a lot of people suffering from the drink or a bit worse for wear. So they're a bit more lackadaisically. So I've gone and they asked you at triage, "What's wrong?" I says, "Well, I think I might have hurt my rib. It's a bit sore." I says, "When did you do it?" I said, "Oh, about a week and a half ago." "All right." And so she sit down. About an hour and a half later, because that's the sort of waiting time in accident emergency, you go in and the doctor says to me, "Oh, do you have a touch of that?" He says, "Well, we'll send you for an you can't do anything with broken ribs anyway." I says, "Excuse me, can I have an x-ray?" "No, you don't need an x-ray. Like, so you can't do that." No, I'd really like an x-ray." So they sent me for an x-ray and then I came back. Now, before that, it was an hour and a half in waiting to see the doctor. Then it was an hour after I'd seen the doctor to wait for the x-ray. When they got the x-ray results, 2 doctors came running out, took me into the room and they said, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" I says, "Yeah, yes." Says, "Why? Have you had the results?" He says, "Yeah. Says, "Have I got a broken rib? Have I got a broken rib?" "No." I'm like, "Oh dear." And he said, "No, you've got 6 broken ribs." And I've jumped up and down and gone, "Yes, yes." Because at the end of the day, really, you can't do anything with broken ribs anyway. You just let them rest. But they were in shock that I was jumping up and down. And then I said, "Can I have a copy of the x-ray?" And I've got a picture of it framed in the house downstairs here now.
Fabulous. What a fantastic story. I've never heard of anybody celebrating the fact they've got 6 broken ribs. That is just brilliant. I read that.
The pain had gone.
So is that again?
The pain had gone then anyway. By the time I got home to England, the pain had gone. So they're on the heel.
Well, I read that and I laughed. Not because of obviously you hurt yourself, but it was just fabulous. Another thing is arm wrestling. Now, tell us about the arm wrestling.
I got asked to go onto that Soccer AM, is it, in the mornings.
Yeah.
Tim loved. They asked me to go along to where they do the penalty. You take a penalty in the car park. They were doing, and I asked him when he wanted me to do it, and he said it's around about the 23rd of December, 24th of December. I says, "Well, it's my wedding anniversary around about that time, around about that time. I should know exactly, the 23rd. Where we'll be going on from there." So when I rocked up at Soccer AM, I was all suited up, because normally people just turn up in leisure stuff and just smart casual sort of, yeah. But I was over the top, and so they asked me to do the penalty. So you play up a bit, like I've got the suit on, took my suit on in the socks, go to take the penalty, and put the ball in the back of the net, and that's normally it. But because of the carry on before, Tim Lovejoy must have been hearing this. They've gone, "Get him in here, get him in here, get him in here." And so I didn't know that. So they've come up and says, "Brian, do you mind just going into the studio and this is all live, just mind going in and just having a word? Tim would just like to have a word with you." So I says, "All right." So take the socks out of my shoes, smart myself back up again, tell him that, and go in, and then he, for some reason, I don't know why, he leant across the table to shake my hand and said, "Hello, Brian." And I just took his hand and then just dragged him across the table. So just dragged him across the studio. And they couldn't, what the hell's he doing? What the hell's he doing? So he's dragged him across it. He's got himself up, got back in the chair, and just had the crack. And so I just felt like doing it. I don't know why. I haven't got a clue. And we left the studio, went off and celebrated our anniversary. Then a couple of days later, we went back from London back home to Yorkshire. And then I get a phone call about a week later. And one of his stooges, which are all about 10 years old that are working there, they're all people, and says, Brian, Tim just wondered if you wouldn't mind coming and doing something for us on Soccer AM. I says, oh, interesting. What would you like me to do? To do some arm wrestling. And the expletives I used when they said that to me was quite rum, because what is the one thing, believe it or not, what's the one thing you don't use in football is your arms. You might use your elbows, but you don't use your arms. And at the time, my hair was about down to my bottom, and just looked a bit of a, it was just a bit. The way Tim Lovejoy liked it, it was if you knew somebody, and it was sort of the way you could sort of express, or you could fill a screen. So I can always remember doing. They asked me to go to West Ham when John was there. John Moncur was there, and I was going to do it with, I don't know who I was. One of the players was going to do it, but John came out to do it, and he took the Michael. See, I did really well there, not swearing.
You did very well. I was wondering.
But it's so like John, the way he acted the ghost. Like, he came running up. We were supposed to get and do the arm wrestle. He was just to get ready, and he slammed it down before we even started and ran off. But I don't know if Tim Lovejoy put that on the television, because he was very picky about the people he put on, because I thought there were some really funny ones that he never put on.
Wasn't Kanu one of them?
Pardon?
Kanu.
Kanu was one of them. And this is no word of a lie. This is, I get a phone call, because I used to say to them, when they started this off, I says, well, I'm not going to organise any of this. You'll have to organise it, because I'm not going to get the players. You get the players. You phone me up, because I can go anytime you want. I can drop everything and go off and do it. So it was an excuse for me and the missus to go out and have a jolly for a couple of days, go down to London, do that, stay a night in London, then come back and go and carry on working whatever work I was doing up here. And I said, that's the way it's going to be. So then they phoned me up one day and says, could you come down to London to Carnew's offices? I can't remember. Carnew, his offices. Oh, the centre forward at Arsenal says yes. He says, but there's one thing. This is their young president. Says, but there's one thing about Carnew. You've got to let him win. I said, what? He said, you've got to let him win. His agent said he won't do it unless you let him win. I go, yeah, all right, then. All right, not a problem. No problem. So they'll all be sorting this out. So the day we're going to go down, I get down to London and I meet the camera people and the people from Tim Lovejoy's studio, and they say, Killer, you've got to let him win. The agents had this, and Tim said you've got to let him win. I said, yeah, no problem. So then we get inside the offices. We go inside the offices to have a look at waiting for this Carnew to rock up, and then Vieira rocks up, and then Henry rocks up, and then Carnew walks into the place, and it's sort of a bit surreal. The cameramen are getting a bit wound up. The agent's rubbing his hands. Carnew sits down. I sit down. We get ready to do the arm wrestle, and I slam his arm right down on the table. Their agent's jumping up and down like a lunatic, because they only do one take. And the agent's jumping up and down like a lunatic. The people from the studio are going, what have you done? What have you done? And Carnow's the other side of the table, and he's just going, yeah. He knew, because I think it was just the agent that said it and the people in the studio that said it. And because you don't know, because I've never had any dealings with an agent. If I go into a football club and I'm happy with what they offer me, I'm happy with that. That's it. I'm not going to squabble about and all this. But I think agents, they take the reality away from what the person is, what the footballer is. They take that, they're not allowed to be that footballer. They're not allowed to be that boy. They make them out to be something that they're not, which is sad, really, because the supporters don't get to see it. And I think the higher up you go in the football as well, they sort of segregate the footballers from the supporters, and you don't. And that's one of the things that when I first started, you'd go into a pub at the end of the game, or not directly at the end of the game, but when you've got changed, and you talk amongst the supporters, and they'll come and have a talk to you. Sure. I don't think they do now, but no, but these agents take that all away. So I think, and Carno, he knew what he was crossing. Vieira and Henri, they were laughing their socks off because it was real, it was proper, and I think that went out like that. But there was a few strange arm wrestling situations.
It's fabulous. Daz St. George says, fantastic to hear you, Killia. Brilliant interview. And then Andy says, when's that autobiography coming out? Would be a great read. Have you thought of that?
There's a young lad at Swindon. He works for one of the big major papers now, and he did an article on me quite a few years ago, and it's probably one of the best articles I've ever had done about me. And he said to me about doing an autobiography, and he said he'd done Vardy's, because the reason why I say he did Vardy's is because I said to him, I could never do an autobiography because I could never remember anything. There's so many things that have happened, you forget. I can't even remember some of the things I did last week. And the young lad from Swindon, he turned around to me and he said, well, that's what Vardy did. And so what I did was I went round and spoke to all his mates, and they all had a story to tell. And then I wrote them all down, then came back and told Vardy these stories, which sparked a memory in him. So that enabled him to write the book.
There you go, you see.
We could do that with you. But then again, I could turn around to him and say, yeah, but there's a lot of things that happened to me that nobody knows about as well. That's quite funny.
I mean, there's loads I could talk to you about, but I'm going to let you go in a minute because we've had you over now, which is fabulous. But
I apologise for being as late as I was.
Hey, we've got you. That's the main thing. I mean, I just, you're Australian best man and you're South African witness, but the Australian best man you sort of picked out in a bar, but you've remained friends with him, haven't you, and things like that.
I still talk to him. He had a radio station over in Australia, because after that, I think it was about, well, I don't know exactly. I'll say 10 years later. It was quite a few years later. Me and Len went off travel. We spent half a year traveling around, but we took in Australia, and the reason why we took in Australia because he was getting married. So we went to his wedding, which was one of the nicest weddings we've ever been to. The way the Australians did it, it was timed, and you got there. Everybody said hello. Everybody said this and that, and then it stopped. It finished, and everybody went. And we've kept in touch with each other ever since. I think I sent him a message the other day because he's just moved from the sports side. And now he's just travelling around coastal areas all around Australia. That's a terrible job he's got there.
Yeah.
But Andy Mather's a really, really nice lad.
Fabulous. You played for England a couple of times at under 21 level, but we've got a question here which says from Gerard, were you ever eligible to play for Ireland?
Oh. My father disowned me for 2 months.
Oh.
My father disowned me for 2 months because I got asked by Jack Charlton and a few of those to play for Ireland. But rewinding back to my start of my footballing career, the assistant manager at Notts County was Howard Wilkinson, who was the under-21s manager at England as well. He told me not to go for Ireland, not to go for Ireland, not to go for Ireland. And then he played for me for England. And then I played 2 games for England. John Barnes' first game for England that we played it. If I could reel off that team, Steve McMahon played in that team as well. Venison played in that team. Welshie played in that team. Cyril Regis played in that team. Mabbott. It was a hell of a team. But I played for England under 21s, and my father disowned me because I never played for Ireland. But rewind again, England in that time period, England went to 1 World Cup, Ireland went to 2.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, they did. Yeah,
And they had some cracking centre halves, but I would never change anything I've done or anything.
No.
I've done some silly things and I've done some great things, but I'm a very, very happy man, and it's down to this young lady. Don't tell her. The young lady downstairs and the people I've met while playing football. You know,
do you know what that came across in all the stuff I read and watched about you this afternoon? I just thought, do you know what? It's a fun life. You've got a dummy called Elf, haven't you? You've got a head of a dragon. You know, calling a linesman an egg. Do you know what I mean? It just, all of it came across as somebody who just enjoys himself. I think that's fair to say, isn't it?
I try to, because life is hard. So you just try and find, like when I finished playing football, when I started doing the building work, what do? You know, I spent hours and hours on my own. You end up talking to yourself a lot, and chasing walls is about the nearest I could get to playing football. You know, because it puts yourself under pressure. Chasing walls, as in plastering a wall. You start it, you've got to finish it, because if you don't, it's going to look an absolute pig's ear. But I try and be straight with people. I like people being straight with me. And my wife said to me a long, long time ago that work hard now, because in years to come, I'm beholden to nobody. I can do what I want. And I've worked very hard. Probably worked a lot harder after football than I did when I was playing football, to get into the situation I am now, where I'm beholden to nobody. And, you know, I can do what I want. And that's a hell of a thing to be able to say.
Absolutely. We haven't even mentioned the place in St Austell yet, either, which is another thing, isn't it? Another string to your bow, as it were.
Yeah, it's keeping yourself doing things, but doing things that you love doing.
Absolutely. Well, Martin said, thanks for coming to the reunion 2 weeks ago. It was a privilege to meet with you again. And what came across at that reunion was the camaraderie between you players. There was obviously a lot of love on that top table, wasn't there?
There is. Somebody said to me, who's your best mate in football? And I can honestly say I haven't got a best mate, because they're all what is it? What's the word? Acquaintances. We're all acquaintances, because football is a bit like ships that pass in the night. You know, like when I've left clubs, you go out one door and then somebody else comes in the other door and you move. It's not like getting everything set. When I left Coventry, it was just in the space of a day. When I left Notts County, it was in a day. Newcastle in a day. Swindon was in a day when I actually left. So, and then you move on somewhere else. But the thing is, you see, I can still, the first club I ever went to or ever played for was Notts County, and it's the same in all the clubs. And Swindon was one of the latter ones, which you saw the other week. It's like you've never been away. You go into a room full of the lads that you used to play with, and it's like you've never been away. The only thing that's different is some of them are twice the size they were. Some of them have got no hair. Some of them, but you can still see that twinkle in a lot of them's eyes. They might have changed, but there's that twinkle. I think all footballers have got that little mischievous twinkle.
Yeah, you mentioned the hair, of course. Famous, your hair, a Christmas haircut.
Yeah,
that's another thing we haven't mentioned. There's so much we could talk about. I mean, can you come back to us another night and we could do another session? Is that all right with you in the future?
In the future, yes, possibly, yes.
Because it's been fantastic.
Because at the minute I'm up in Yorkshire, so I'm leaving in about 3 or 4 days' time. But when I'm down south, I'm doing a lot of work, so I won't be having time to do sitting around.
Not in the near future, but at some point down the road, it'd be great to talk to you.
Well, you've got my contact. If you want to do something in a couple of 3-4 months' time, give me a shout.
Lovely. Mr. Brian Kilcline, it's been an absolute joy and an honour. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And
I apologise for being a bit late.
No problem at all, Brian. No problem at all. It's great that you did come on. So.
Well, we'll let you go and have a lovely evening. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
You're going to say goodbye.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. You carry on. Thank you ever so much, Brian. It's been a pleasure, and I'll be in touch.
All right then, love.
Okay, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, yes, so we are back next week, Vic, aren't we? We're back to do the review of the Morecambe game.
He's still there, look.
He's turned this thing off.
Just switch your phone.
Still got you.
Just switch your phone off for a minute, and then they'll be gone. It's fine. There you go. He's gone.
He's gone. He's gone. So we'll be back next Monday to do Morecambe, and we will incorporate our end of season review as well. So
that'll be fun. Yeah. But don't forget the Junior Reds party this coming Thursday. Yeah, the Junior Reds party this coming Thursday. Caroline Lane's put on a lot of stuff. So if you are coming along, you're going to have a great time. And I think you can still get tickets, can't you? So
Yes, I'm sure you can through the ticketing website. So brilliant. But no, I'm glad we persevered for Brian, because that was fantastic.
I just, there are certain people you think, do you know what? He's different, but that's great. And that's what comes across. Whenever you read about him, it's just bonkers, but fabulous. I mean, calling the linesman an egg and getting booked. I mean, brilliant.
And we didn't need the bleeper.
No, he was I was a little worried.
We were slightly worried about some of the language that might have come out after the night we had a couple of weeks ago with the reunion. But no, that was fine. So that was all good. So,
and I'm sorry we didn't get to all your questions, but I think we normally send them off, don't we? And
yes, we will do. Yeah, we will do. We'll send them to him anyway. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good week. We will be back next Monday, and we will see you then. So until then, take care. Bye-bye.